dare I say, get buy-in for that boss that may not understand what's going on. So, thing number one, zoom out. Not only are we obsessed with the difference between B2B, B2C, B2B2C, we're also obsessed in digital with the ability for us to target. How narrow can we target? How narrow can we get? What are the, there's a lot of programmatic vendors that are out there. How much good data can we get to balance or advance some of the work that we're doing behind the scenes? All those things are real and things that we should be paying attention to and doing. But it can also lead us to a dangerous place. How many of you are, maybe much to your chagrin, measured based on last click attribution? Like that's the number one principle that you drive success towards, so paid search or whatever. No participation on that one. Yeah, everyone's like, kinda. Most organizations that I've seen, it's the easiest way to attribute, right? It's the last click, so therefore I'm going to give credit to search. Well, the assisted lift, the assisted lead across all these other channels and things, which we'll talk about eventually, is so much more important than that last click attribution, but super hard to measure. It's the art part, right? It's not the science part. I heard someone say yesterday during a presentation, and I like this, so I'm stealing it, just accept the fact that 70% is as good as you're gonna get. Like, make that a principle that you drive throughout your organization. You're gonna have 70% accuracy with your attribution, and all the rest is art. And that's maybe aggressive as a number for a lot of organizations that may not have the right setup to be able to even attribute 70%. So how can we think about marketing that is not related to that last click attribution or something like that that's super narrow? It's an ecosystem. We've been thinking about ecosystems at Oodle since roughly 2016, 2017. And I remember having this conversation with my team, and we're like, how can we get this particular persnickety client to understand how these things relate together? How do they work together in a way that makes sense? And we're like, okay, yeah, we'll call it an ecosystem. Everyone knows like 7th grade science, right? You can understand how biological ecosystems or oceanic ecosystems work. It's all this stuff that work together to create life and create this harmonious situation that we live in, right? Digital marketing is no different. Everything works together. All of these different pieces and parts that you have activated have to work with one another. Okay, so another show of hands. If you have an agency that does your media, raise your hand. If you have an agency that does your creative, raise your hand. I'm not getting any participation, y'all. I know everybody has agencies in this room. So the point I'm trying to drive here is that when you have agencies that are pointing in different directions, or you have internal teams even, or groups that are pointing different directions, you're not working as an ecosystem. You don't have a guiding principle, a roadmap, so to speak, of where you're going and why those things make sense. So I'm going to prove to you why an ecosystem matters. So we all care about last click attribution because we have to. We have to be able to report that out to our internal stakeholders who care about it and told us that we have to care about it, right? But what they don't understand is that this is the average conversion path in a nutshell. It takes 20 touch points across 12 different channels and surprisingly 5 different devices. You all have a phone, you have a personal computer, you have a work computer, you have a connected TV, you have all these different things, right, that you're interacting with the web on. That's huge. That's a much bigger ecosystem than someone converted on paid search, right? So when we think about how big this ecosystem is, and we think about how many touch points, how many channels, how many devices, it can get overwhelming. So how do we wrangle that? How do we figure all that out? Well, we have to start by thinking about our competition. When I said the word competition, I'll bet that 50% of you thought of the logo of your actual competition, right? Who is my competition? I know that. I know what they're doing in market. I know what we're doing to combat what they're doing in market. The truth is, that's only part of your competition. Remember that number about costs going up 70% in the last 5 years? The truth is, those 4 bubbles around the star, that represents who you just thought of as your competition. But your competition is actually anyone that is reaching those same consumer groups that you are. And so costs and how you compete in a digital landscape for those precious 3 seconds of attention have never been more difficult because of all this logo parade that you don't even see behind the scenes. That's something that we have to factor in as marketers, and I think C-suites in particular need to be educated as to how this works, because it's different than it used to be. It just is. So how do we prove that? How do we get some of this information and be able to tell the C-suites and be able to tell our internal stakeholders what it is that we're doing, what's working, what's not? Well, of course.